What God didn't bless me in height, He blessed me in voice. So if you could, please just indulge me for a second after all those powerful talks and just close your eyes for a minute. And imagine your lives at this very moment if your community library didn't exist. How different would your life be? Please open your eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, libraries are dead. If we could just think about how many of us here hold library cards. Those that are in academia, stop cheating. You can put your hands down. Okay. How many of us have visited our libraries in the last 6 months? Okay, we're hanging out with the smart crowd. Okay. But generally, the statistics show that libraries are generally declining in use. In the USA, this has declined in the last decade by 31%, in Australia by 22%, and in the UK by a resounding 71%. So maybe they're not completely dead, but maybe they're not as useful, and we need to rethink that. So if I give you a bit of a brief history about libraries, in the 19th century, Andrew Carnegie invested some money in building some libraries across America, Europe, and the UK, 125 of them. These libraries were special spaces. They also had recreational activities, so you could come in and hang out with your family and do more than just read. Similarly, in Africa, I'm from Zimbabwe. During that time, it was Rhodesia. There were libraries that were built in the colonial space, and these were normally in your suburbs and not accessible to a particular number of the population. The same in America as well, in these libraries. Black people were excluded, and people not living in suburbia were also excluded. It was a preserve for the elite. So I propose, why don't we open up library spaces as community spaces? In Zimbabwe, I work with a project called Ndaiziva, where we work on capacitating young people, where we capacitate them through giving them life skills. So this is about sexual reproductive health and rights, through teaching them the importance of reading, through creating livelihoods and business models, and more importantly, peer education. So why don't we convert these library spaces so that young people have a space to go? A lot of the children that we work with, we have life skills camps for them, where we have the opportunity to spend time with these kids for a good 2 weeks and 6 days. We educate them, and then they go home. Back to their vulnerable communities. Back to spaces where they're exposed to drugs. Back to spaces like a lot of my colleagues have already spoken to, that they do not own and do not have space or agency to speak for themselves. So why are we not building these spaces for them? Our libraries are an opportunity for that. For instance, in Harare, where I come from, we have the City of Harare Library, which still exists, but they've had to start hiring out for other uses in order to keep it sustainable. Similarly, in Gaborone, I work with book clubs, and we have a lot of young people coming in, but they don't have updated books. They don't have digital learning to access. So we need to rebuild these spaces, give these spaces back to young people. And it shows that once people have a space that they own, they are more likely to be engaged in the civic spaces that we need them to be in. And compounding all of that is the issue of COVID-19 that hit us in 2019. At that time, 37 million children were already out of school. By the time we got to July 2021, an additional 32 million children had dropped out of school due to COVID-19 related issues. Similarly, in Uganda, 1 in 10 did not return to school. In South Africa, the numbers moved from 250,000 dropouts as children to 750,000. In Malawi, an incredible 48%. So libraries are not only an opportunity to educate children, but we have community spaces where we can develop the children's museums that were established in Bolivia, or Medellin library parks, as was done in Colombia, spaces for families to meet and learn about in different ways, tactile ways, and increase online and digital learning. So please do help me with your ideas. and of course, with sustainable solutions on how we can build and rebuild these spaces, particularly in Zimbabwe and in Gaborone, where I work and live. So let's think of this as an opportunity to rethink and democratize learning spaces by reinventing our libraries and creating community spaces. Thank you.